they're these multifaceted, multi-passionate beings, all of us. And we have all of these different capacities and layers to our being, and we're waking up to that as a society, which I think is ultimately a good thing. But then we look at our partners and the people that we choose in our lives with an increasing degree of expectation as well, don't we? I want my partner to be emotionally available. I want them to know how to show up and digest and process experiences with me. I basically want them to be kind of a therapist in my life. I need them to be my best friend. I need them to be an amazing and dynamic sex partner. I need them to send me really good gifts and really funny memes and to be attentive to my messages at all times, right? I need them to be a social compatriot, my +1 for weddings and dinner parties, and I need them to be able to function in those kinds of atmospheres. I want you to be my adventure buddy and to go on road trips or whatever it is that I like to do in my free time, you know, to go hiking and et cetera, and maybe my creative partner, and you need to be my roommate. You better be on top of those dishes as well. And we need to pay rent together and our finances are involved with each other, and you get it, right? There's all this complexity to our lives. There's this great complexity to the situation that we find ourselves in globally. And then we look to each other, expecting each other to meet us in all of these places that nobody was ever expected to meet one another before. It used to be kind of like, you know, in our parents' and grandparents' generation, like, you're the person I'm married to, and then I go and do these other things. And now we kind of want to do all of those things together and to be met in our complexity completely, or at least mostly, by another person, and we have a recipe for disaster. This is not precedented. We're not even talking about bringing in, for those of you who are single and dating, what dating apps are like and the incredibly pernicious mentality that dating apps have really spawned in people's lives, of thinking I can always do a little bit better, or, you know, just expecting, you know, we're talking about how dynamic and fluid and multifaceted we are, and then somebody is expected to distill that into a little profile. So not only do I want you to be all of these things to me, in order for me to even initiate an attraction for you, you better be able to distill that into a paragraph that invites me in, so that I can even feel moved to begin getting to know you and discovering all of that complexity. I need to first be impressed by a facade of you. Very dehumanizing. Very dehumanizing. A lot of this is really born of something else we've been talking about, which is our desire for a redeemer, a desire for somebody that I can project upon my needs and the things that went awry in my lives, and you'll somehow know how to come in and rectify that situation for me. Or you'll be the person that I can finally go and live out my dreams with, because I'm afraid to go and do it on my own. And so I'm waiting for somebody who meets me in just the right way, and then I can go on all of the trips and do all of the things that I dreamed about, right? I'm waiting for somebody who never dissatisfies me or never erupts on me. I'm waiting for somebody that I can experience a blissful harmony with. It should be easy. I don't want people with baggage. I don't want people who get angry ever. Isn't it this way for us? We have a background dream, and it really is a dream. It really is a fantasy. It really is a myth of it being some other way than it actually is. And if I could just get you or get someone else who shows up in this way, then I'd be good. And it just never happens. The perfect person isn't out there. The person who can meet us in all the ways isn't out there. The uncomplex relationship that is easy, that just flows, is not out there. So here's what we can aim for. Within this maddening, frankly, context, here's what we can aim for. Donald Winnicott, very famous psychoanalyst, very famous psychological theorist, very famous child development theorist from mid-20th century, talked about the good enough parent. And what a good enough parent is this very, very liberating concept for those who are child rearing around, like, look, just admit you're going to mess up your kid, basically. Just admit it. You're not going to be able to be perfect. You're not going to be able to save them from every little thing. In fact, we as human beings need crisis. All child development happens actually as a result of some sort of crisis in our lives. We need difficulty in order to grow. We need challenge in order to grow. And so trying to save your kid and make things really nice for them is actually not, is doing them a disservice, right? And this isn't of the ilk of like, I've got to punish you really hard because the world is really hard and I need to prepare you for how hard that is. That's something that's different. That's a toxic version of what we're talking about right now. But there's a healthy version of it wherein this very important tenet of good enough parenting, I think, at least as somebody who hasn't raised a kid but has worked with a lot of children and a lot of families and a lot of parents as a result, or by extension rather, one of the tenets of good enough parenting is entraining your kid with the instinct of challenge as opportunity. That difficulty can become a strengthening, can teach us life lessons, can be an invitation to explore ourselves, get to know ourselves in new ways, can be an invitation to persevere past obstacles that I feel are insurmountable, but are actually surmountable. I think to every final season that I had in college and certainly in grad school as well, where it was like, how am I going to do all of this? I also have a job and I have all these other things going on in my life, and now all of these papers that are due next week, and I don't understand how this is going to happen. And then you find a way somehow to make it happen. Find a way to make it happen, right? We need situations like that in our lives to teach us that we are capable of more than we think we are. We are smarter than we think that we are. We are stronger than we feel. We are more courageous than we've ever dreamed, really. And so let's transpose this idea of good enough parent over to partnership and relationship. That we don't need perfect partners in our lives. In fact, it wouldn't be good for us as human beings to find the one who comes in and redeems us and saves us and is like, offers this all-encompassing harmony that we, at least in the background of our minds, like to believe might be possible. It's not going to happen. What we can find, good enough partners. Good enough partners where in the Venn diagram of what we have in common, there's just enough here in the middle where those two circles intersect right here, and there's just enough out here that offers us contrast so that there's friction and things to work out. Because necessarily we are going to invariably project stuff onto each other. And like I was saying with conflict, it can be very, very healthy and very strengthening to work that stuff out, right? But to admit, like, I just need somebody who's good enough, who can meet me enough that we can tolerate the natural frustration, the natural conflict, and the natural disagreements and what have you that come up, the natural disappointments that come up in relationship. And part of good enough partnering would be, can we consciously entrain the instinct of these challenges are opportunities too? You're giving me a chance by triggering my traumas for me to work out my traumas with myself. That's one way of expressing what I'm talking about here. Right? Not you're triggering my traumas and therefore you've got to work it out with me. You're triggering my traumas and stuff's coming up for me. And yes, that might mean some communication dynamics or some things need to change with you, but ultimately my triggers have to be my responsibility. I am the only one who can take charge of that enterprise and go and do the work and heal the root of what I'm experiencing coming up here. That would be good enough partnering.